Today I have with me a very important personality in Edo State, Dr. Osagie Obayuwana, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Edo State. Sir, you're very welcome to this show.
Thank you very much.
I also have with me the publisher of Bold and Beautiful magazine, Yinka Odiajo. Yinka, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, can we start by asking you to please introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Osagie Osariemen Obayuwana. I'm a lawyer, presently serving in Edo State, Nigeria, as the Attorney General Commissioner for Justice. I came to Ireland to attend the International Barr Association conference 2012, and it's nice to be here.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, from the conference you've been attending, what have you gained so far?
Well, it's nice to interact with colleagues from all over the world, and the leadership of the organization through several committees of the association has formulated topical issues. As a lawyer in public service, I found particularly interesting sessions having to do with state accountability for offenses carried out by state operatives like the police against citizens. You know, when organs of state violate the rights of citizens, and such citizens, you know, bring actions against the state, you know, having to contend with payment of damages and such like issues. We have seen instances where, on account of the rise in the wave of terrorism, security agencies want to be edgy and exercise their discretion more in favor of perhaps, you know, being overcautious and taking preemptive measures that retrospectively may be seen as being violative of the rights of citizens. Unjust detentions and unjustifiable taking of lives and properties and things like that. I found that particularly interesting. And of course, the session on resource nationalism. There is a rise in the wave of particularly developing countries seeking to assert greater sovereign rights over their natural resources, and this struggle over that between those sovereign states and in particular multinational corporations, and how do we relate all of this to establish legal rights, you know, in the multinational corporations that have been in place for extended periods of time. So I particularly found those interesting, and of course the last session that I found very exciting. What is the role of lawyers in the abolition of poverty? Why should lawyers generally tend to serve such a minuscule, you know, percentage of the populace? How, beyond just pro bono services, what kind of role lawyers must play in bringing about greater equity in human affairs and abolition of alleviation of poverty in general. So a wide array of issues are presented at a convention of this sort. It takes the interests of particular lawyers to choose which sessions to attend. I found these ones particularly interesting, and I don't know the ones that attended.
So with that particular last session that you enjoyed, are we going to see changes in how the poverty is going to be elevated? Oh, sorry, how it's going to be abolished in dealing with clients?
Well, it's still a role definition process for us as lawyers. You know, we are pricking our conscience, particularly now as it relates to lawyers in private practice, lawyers who work for banks, who work for the rich, you know, who by and large end up affirming the use of law as an instrument of oppression, you know. So it's more of a role definition stage that we are now. Lawyers probing these issues more deeply. I know that such issues are likely to be with us for some time to come. I'm sure they will be revisited, you know, at the next convention, which will take place in Boston, USA. But between now and then, I'm sure there will be issues to be taken up, either at the national level or at the community level.
In the eyesight that the abolition poverty, abolition of poverty is the function of government. As the public servant and the Attorney General Commission of Justice in Edo State, what is your take? Taking you back home, what is your take from this conference? How do you achieve that as a government function? When you
Well, you know, before I answer the question, first, one of the resolutions arrived at, you know, today was that the task of abolishing poverty is not one that ought to be reserved, you know, exclusively to the government. You know, yes, corporations, companies, you know, engage in what you call corporate social responsibility, you know, but by and large, that is more like philanthropy. You know, so a fundamental issue being contended with, if businesses are set up to maximize profit, you know, how do we reconcile that goal, you know, with the task of equitable sharing of what is collectively produced by humankind? So it's a responsibility that extends beyond governmental circles. But as it relates to government, because in the final analysis, you know, abolishing poverty revolves around assuring the enjoyment of fundamental rights, the right to housing. You know, the poor, you know, find themselves on the streets without homes, you know, and out there on the streets, you can't raise a family on the streets. You know, if you have children, they cannot go to school because you don't have a fixed address. You can't even vote. You know, the right to healthcare, the right to employment, and all of that. These issues have been on for quite some time. They date as far back as the early 60s, you know, at the level of UN conventions and covenants for social and economic rights. You know, but historically, they have been like aspirations, you know, with exceptions being created for particularly developing countries who may find themselves, you know, saddled with the task of raising the resources to assure that there are no homeless people, you know, in their countries. So the task of building houses, you know, and perhaps allocating them on a non-rent paying basis, you know, will call for a lot of investments, you know. So in Nigeria in particular, we have also recognized, you know, the importance of these rights, socio-economic rights, the right to education as a matter of right, the right to health care on the basis of need and not ability to pay, the right to favorable conditions of living. These rights are recognized in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in the part of the Constitution we call Chapter 2. They are not justiciable, they are not enforceable. You cannot go to court and say you bring an action for mandamus to compel maybe the state government to provide you with housing and expect a court order to say, okay, within this prescribed time, please give Mr. ABC a house.
Yeah.
You know, so it's more like achievable, winnable. That's why we refer to them as.
Can I take you back a bit to, you know, the part you talked about corporate social responsibility?
Yes.
How much is the Edo State government doing to help the companies, for the companies to help the citizens of Edo State?
It's a policy matter that you don't enforce, you know, by way of court orders. Yes, the government would seek to encourage you know,
companies
yeah,
to be involved in it.
in the environment in which they operate, you know, to beyond profit maximization, you know,
because in the Western world, that's what's really moving them forward.
Yeah.
For the companies to be able to contribute in the communities where they work. So is the Edo State government putting this into their policies as well?
Of course it's there. You know, we meet with companies. Edo State government, Edo State is part of the Niger Delta. And you will recall that there's been a lot of agitation in the Niger Delta where the bulk of Nigerian oil is produced. The victims of the process of the production of oil, those who have their rivers and water sources polluted, you know, by oil spills, who have the air in their environment polluted by continued flaring, who by and large are subject to control from far away Abuja, the headquarters, the capital city of the government of the Federal Republic. So we've had a lot of agitations in the Niger Delta where the people feel the resources are just being taken out without the benefits coming to them, but the burden. And so we've had instances where local communities impede the work of multinational corporations and you know, disrupt their activities, block the roads, sabotage the pipelines, which also end up contributing to greater pollution and all of that. So through this, companies are starting to appreciate, because you can have instances where the oil platform and the living quarters of the multinational oil companies staff, having all the amenities like 24 hours of electricity, safe water, and all of that. And less than half a kilometer away, you find people living in penury. So the agitations have strengthened the arm of the provincial government in encouraging, you know, these companies to engage in corporate social responsibility, give them facilities, build a school, even though these traditionally are duties that people say, you know, should be met by government, but even government, you know, does not have infinite resources. So there are some of these companies who now build hospitals, extend, you know, power supply to and water supply, you know, and these are forms of corporate social responsibility. They also give scholarships to bright students, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Sir, being the Attorney General and the Commissioner for Justice, Edo State, recently there was a court ruling for the state government to conduct the local government elections. Why has this not been done?
There have been several rulings, you know, the latest one of which is also that the composition of the electoral body, the Edo State Independent Electoral Commission, as composed, you know, I mean, issues have been raised about the legality of the dissolution of the body that was and the recomposition of what obtains now. There is actually an injunction now restraining the commission as presently composed from going ahead. So it's like contradictory signals, you know, from the judiciary. But don't forget, you know, that we at the state level are also dependent on the voters register that was produced by the Electoral Commission at the national level. Okay. We know also that there have been amendments to the electoral law at the national level, which also have implications for the state law on electoral matters as they relate to local government councils. You know, so we have made proposals to the House of Assembly to bring the state law in consonance with the national law. That has taken some time, and of course these conflicting signals. But I can assure you that, you know, in no distant future, you know, the elections at the level into the local government councils will be conducted.
Talking of elections and what has transpired in Edo State, you as an activist, the Comrade Bono as an activist, how did you get Edo State back on that pedestal where people cannot really election, godfatherism was brought down to his level? How did you people achieve that?
I think the past 4 years of the Governor Shomoli's administration has broken new grounds as far as you know, good governance as an aspiration is concerned. We are not the ones to put epaulets on our own shoulders, but I think it's objectively appreciated that, you know, our government has done, you know, very well. And ordinarily, where, you know, the public has received, you know, the benefit of good governance, it is expected that you know, such a government will be rewarded with an extension of their tenure by way of re-election. But we do know that there are those who do not subscribe to the rules of the game, who would seek to subvert the process by virtue of the connections they have at other levels. So we found it necessary to address these issues and have the masses of our people define their role in ensuring that that does not come to play. We are the originators of the slogan, one man, one vote, you know, and we were sure that if that held sway, this issue of multiple voting and disenfranchisement of people, you know, certainly it was within the realm of, you know, the sovereign powers of our people to ensure that that did not take place. So, as the saying goes, the people mobilized can never be defeated. And I think that is what you witnessed in the last elections in Edo State. So those who generally are regarded as godfathers, who say whether the masses vote for them or not, the results are already known, so they are the ones that are put to shame.
Commissioner, with the state of insecurity in the country and the state particularly with its own kidnapping stories here and there, how is the government the Edo State government trying to curb this?
Well, it's a major area of concern for us, you know. But as you very well know, Nigeria practices a unique and peculiar type of federalism. You know, in most other federations, you have the federal police, you have the state police, you have the county or local government police, and then you have city police. But in Nigeria, it's one federal police, centrally administrated, you know, or administered. In the Constitution, the governor of a state is recognized as the chief security officer of the state. But in that same Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Commissioner of Police for the state, you know, would need to pass directives by the governor, by the IG, before implementation. So it's like, you know, the chief security officer of the state really, you know, doesn't have the wherewithal, you know, and this relates not just to the police, you know, the state security service, the intelligence agencies, they are all federal. The prisons, the immigration, the customs, you know, the drug law enforcement agents and all that, they are all federal, you know. Unfortunately, we would have been happier with the situation where the federal government that receives its lion's share of you know, the resources produced by the country would have been happier if the federal government was meeting its obligation to the federal police. The truth of the matter is that they are not. So we in Edo State have had to equip the police with facilities as basic as vehicles with which to engage in patrols, and spend quite a huge sum of money on that. And beyond that, you know, communication gadgets, because patrol vehicles ought to be able to communicate with the central command and with each other. So we've also had to spend a lot of money buying communication gadgets and to provide an added incentive to the officers. We give them a stipend beyond that which, you know, the federal government is paying. On account of the peculiar nature of the challenge we had as it relates to the specific offense you mentioned, along with other violent crimes, you know, we we sought, the approval of Mr. President
Okay.
and the Army Chief of Staff,
Okay.
Chief of Army Staff, to put together what we call Operation Thunderstorm, whereby we are talking about joint patrols by the police, the military, and the Department of State, the Intelligence Security Service. That has made a lot of difference. So I think what we are dealing with, is a national, in fact, an international phenomenon. There were times when the criminals enjoyed advantages, particularly as it relates to kidnapping. But we are narrowing the gap now. The kind of gadgets that enable the police and the intelligence agencies to track the use of cell phones in commission of crimes. That science is just now getting wider application in Nigeria and in Edo State in particular, and it's already bearing fruit.